When I was a young boy, my father took me into the city to see a marching band. He said, son, when you grow up, would you be the savior of the broken, the beaten and the damned? He said, will you defeat them, your demons and all the non-believers, the plans that they have made? Because one day I'll leave you a phantom to lead you in the summer to join the Black Parade.
Welcome back to the Cork Football Podcast. In this episode, we're going to be looking back at our game against Offaly in Tullamore, and we're going to have a look ahead at the game against Meath in Parky Ring coming Sunday. And went up to Tullamore Sunday morning. Nice town. Stadium is very near the centre of the town. We'd been there 2 years ago, I think, wasn't it, Tyrone? There was a double header with the hurlers. I think they were playing Dublin. There was a nice Cork crowd around. Great to see. I'd be kind of a keen observer of humanity, and I often get the sense that following Cork football is often a kind of a solo pursuit, and I'd often notice people who travel to these games alone. The hurling is more of a social thing. They'd be more in groups. I suppose fellas had groups one time, but they're after falling by the wayside. There's been so many kind of lows along the way. But and these guys know they'd be typically, I'd say they'd be in their early 60s, probably fellas that caught the bug maybe when they were around 10 years of age, in maybe the early to mid 70s, back in that heyday, and they've kind of stuck with them ever since. It's just an observation there. Anyway, on to the game. There was a strong enough wind. We were on the cupboard stand, and it was blowing left to right. As far as I know, we lost the toss, and Offaly decided to play with the wind. We'd 4 changes at the start. Ronan Maguire was in for Brian O'Driscoll, Dara Sheedy for Brian Hurley, Ian Maguire for Sean Walsh, and Sean Meehan for Tommy Walsh. I don't know, was this injury related or what, but and I've yet to find out, so we'll see that down the road. I was trying to figure out then who was actually going to be holding the centre-back position, and it was kind of hard to make out. To me, I could have got this wrong now, but it looked like that Sean Meehan and Maurice Shanley seemed to be operating around there, and Rory Maguire and Matty Taylor seemed to be pushing up. What was noticeable early on, actually, because the wind was kind of blowing in towards us, so you could hear Patrick Doyle. He was very vocal. And that was very noticeable. And, you'd often hear keepers shouting there, and often they'd be going on with an awful lot of nonsense. But they'd be kind of shouting just for the sake of shouting. But these were very concise, clear instructions to his defenders. And I was impressed with that, actually. Just that extra set of eyes. Know how that's going to work in a noisy stadium in a Munster final and thing, Croke Park. I don't know. Anyway, it was good to see. Another thing I noticed is that we were running hard from the middle, and we were taking a few risks with our hand passing, which I thought was fine because, if you're popping passes there to a fella going at speed, you have more leeway that he can break onto the ball if the pass isn't perfect. I thought it was working well. That passing, taking risks with passing when you're static, and when the passer or the receiver is under pressure, like that is a no-no, but I think they got that right. We got 2 points from Chris Ogue at the start. That was either side of an Offaly 2-pointer. Look, I suppose that 2-pointer, you could see that we just didn't push out enough. The wind, I suppose, was hard to judge, and we just didn't get out near enough to the kicker. That just took a bit of time to get a handle on that. So we actually had a small scare then between near our own goal. Tullamore Shanley, he defended kind of with his body, and kind of the player went to ground. Now, the Offaly crowd were shouting for a penalty, and you would see refs giving it. I remember we had a penalty against us in Killarney there in 2015. I think it was Mark Collins and James O'Donoghue who kind of bought a penalty that day. But he didn't give it anyway, and we got away with that one. Then we had a very good free-flowing move up the field, and Dara Sheedy got a point. That was after 8 minutes. We're doing very well on our kick-out, on their kick-out as well, and on the breaking ball. I just noticed Sean Meehan's positioning for the kick-outs. He was very good. Like, he wasn't watching. He wasn't no interest in going anywhere near competing for ball. He was just watching the jumpers and tracking the jumpers and pouncing on the breaks, and that led to I think that led to Colm O'Callaghan's first goal. Good interplay between Callaghan and Chris Og, and a rocket. So that we were in a good position then, and we were also doing well in our own short kickouts. There was 1 point there. Sean McDonald got a short kick out right over by the sideline, just where the arc and meets the 21, and he broke the tackle and set up an attack. There is risk reward there, because if you can break the tackle and break out, you're after drawing the opposite opponents forwards towards you, and the middle of the field is kind of opened up. So I was happy enough to see that. We kicked the next 3 points. Mark Cronin, Sean McDonald from play, and Stephen Sherlock from a free. So after 17 minutes, it's 1-6 to 2 points. We're dominating midfield, especially Colm O'Callaghan and Paul Welch. Ian Maguire isn't as prominent at this stage. Offaly get a 2-pointer then. That's on 20 minutes, and it's 1-6 to 4 points. And I remember I turned to my father at that stage, and I just said, we're only 5 up. We should be more up. But anyway, no, I'm just going to stop there now. I'm just going to pick out 2 incidents, kind of what I'd say a very good play and something just to work on, and it was with Mara Shanley. The first one is a thing that he'll just have to be conscious of, and I know he probably know himself, but he won a great ball out in front of his men, and about 30 yards out from the goal, he went to ground and got up, and he started burying his way out, then, away from his own goal. And look, you're just giving the referee an easy decision. And what you have to do there, obviously, is you have to retreat towards your own goal and find support. Then, on the flip side, around the same time, there was a long ball went in between himself and the guy he was marking, and it was kind of dropping kind of on the left-hand side of the large square. And he allowed his opponent to win the possession kind of unchallenged as the ball was heading towards the end line. And I remember the crowd the Cork people kind of groaned as in, why didn't you go for it with him? And I thought he actually made the right decision. He had, it was a 50-50 ball. If he lost it, he was off balance, and his man was in on goal. And I thought he had good situational awareness there and a good decision. So that was good to see. We're playing very well. We're using possession smartly. Look, and we're being patient when we need to be. We get the next 2 points, Mark Cronin from play, and another Stephen Sherlock free. We're heading towards half time then, and I just made a note, and a kind of a mental note, that two things happened, which Stephen Sherlock, he went for a 2-pointer off his left leg against the wind, and I just noted that in my head, and I said, you didn't need to be doing that. I said, you're going okay. And look, granted, he was going okay because we were well on top. But our running game, breaking hard in the middle of the field, wasn't really suiting his style. He's kind of better when we've slower build-ups, and he can come on the loop. But and I just think he was trying to have a bigger impact, and I just didn't think he needed to do that. And then you had another thing with Sean Meehan and Paul Welch. They broke out of defence, and we had loads of space, but for some reason their interplay was very slow and hesitant, and they got turned over, and we got exposed with a long ball inside, and it was just, I think, just at times some of the players are playing within themselves, like with this kind of fear. I don't know what it is, and we were well on top at this stage, and I just think management need to leave these guys off the leash a small bit. So there was a few points exchanged in, and it's 196 points in 31 minutes, and Colin McCallan gets his goal then. Great move. Started with a great bit of defending, Daniel O'Mahony, and we're coming up to half time then, and you just couldn't but be happy with the way it was after going. Maybe we could have pushed out a bit stronger on them when they were, in positions to shoot. But, overall you'd be very happy. And the real positive in the first half was Dara Sheedy, of how well he was playing. Like his ball carrying is excellent. His head is up all the time when he's ball carrying, like Paddy Clifford, and he has a great technique when he's ball carrying. Like he'll continually solo the ball, and he'll hold on. He'll save his hop until he's going into contact. And he did that there one time, and he actually set up Sean McDonald for a great goal chance, and it was a great shot by McDonald, and it hit the crossbar. So I'm very impressed with Sheedy, and and another thing, he won a few very dirty balls as well. He was very good all the way through the game. Our midfield was competing very well. The one thing I liked as well, Paul Welch, he was breaking a lot of ball, and not just break it, he was breaking it with intent and real aggression. And like I always think that you either make up your mind whether you're going breaking or catching, and that decision shouldn't be made kind of I'm going to break because I can't catch it. You do one or the other, and I thought he was doing that well. So into the second half then, and it's Offaly get the first score of the second half from a free, and Stephen Sherlock gets a very good point in along the end line, a fisted point set up by Ian Maguire. Very good work by Maguire there, and Mark Cronin then gets his goal. Very well worked move, and again Ian Maguire was critical in this move. We've often seen him there. He'd get into scoring positions in front of goal, possibly a goal, and he always looks like a fish out of water. But he didn't this time, and he held ahead, and he got the pass to Mark Cronin, and Cronin just finished. He had a handy enough finish. So I was really happy with that with Ian Maguire, because we've often seen him make the wrong decision in those situations. And I was saying, Jesus, we're really after turning a corner here when we're showing that sort of maturity. And another thing as well is our kick out. There was one kick out. I'll just give you the scenario. It was so we had our two midfielders on the halfway line, maybe about 20 yards in from either sideline, hands in the air available. We had two men on the 21 out by the sideline, both sides, ready for the short one. And Offaly thought they had all them bases covered. And Doyle gets a beautiful chip in out into the centre back position to Rory Maguire. You just couldn't ask for better. Like it was, they really had. It really looked very, very, very clinical. And unfortunately, that was kind of the last bit of positivity then, because things started to go wrong from there on, and it just started happening all of a sudden. Our hand passing got careless. We were losing our shape. I think this 2-pointer thing, I suspect that they came out thinking that, we're going to shoot the lights out here now with 2-pointers. And I say Offaly were kind of expecting that, and we're set up for it. And we were forcing hand passes, and we were poor shot selection then. We were going for 2-pointers that weren't on. With the 2-pointer there, I was just, sometimes you'd hear rugby analysts there, and they'd be on about that in rugby you have to earn the right to go wide with the ball. And I think it's the same with the 2-pointer in our game. It's that you have to create the time and the space for the shooter, for the shot. You 2-pointers, when you're under pressure with snapshots, like the percentage return isn't great. So 45 minutes in then, and Rory Dean replaces Paul Walsh. I thought Paul Walsh played well. You know, I was impressed with his fit. His fitness is improved big time, and he worked really hard. And I'd say he was thanking his lucky stars that he wasn't there for the last 20 or 25 minutes, because it was bad. The score was 3-10. We 3-10 on the board at that stage, 10 points. And, you know, when I saw Rory Dean coming on, we were failing at that stage. We were about 5 minutes into our bad patch. And, you know, I didn't think he was the sub we needed at that time. But look, anyway, we can't, that's water under the bridge. And I think then we had 2 incidents then that kind of, you know, that weren't good, and kind of compounded everything. Ian Maguire, he got involved in a kind of a handbags thing with the Offaly midfielder, and the Offaly midfielder was only a young fella, and Maguire gets booked, and, you know, there had been no Nigel in the game up to then, and like, he should have been showing more leadership in that stage, and he just kind of, you know, he was sending out the signals that we were rattled, and all he should have been doing there was just pointing to the scoreboard and telling your man that we're up 10 points, and just walk you away. And, you know, and straight after that then, Rory Maguire, he got beaten to a ball out near the sideline on the halfway line. Look, your man just got to the ball before him, but he just dives in then, and your man was kind of turning, and he pulls him down, and he gets a really, really stupid black card. No danger. And, you know, the thing was, I thought he had played well. He was linking very well going forward, and looking more like the player that we saw when he first came on the scene. I thought he had that. I didn't think that he had that. No, I don't know. I could be wrong here, but I didn't think that he had this responsibility as the centre back on the day. I could be wrong. But Sean Welch, he came in for Ian Maguire then shortly after that, on 51 minutes, and look, at that stage, outside of the goal we scored, I think after so that'd be 16 minutes into the second half, we'd 1 point on the board, and that was with the wind. So I just had my notes there. I just said it was awful stuff. Right, Rory Dean then wins a free after a really long build-up. We were over and back, and we looked like we were going nowhere, and we got the free eventually, and, you know, we needed it at the time. Cathal O'Mahony then comes in for Chris Og. Chris Og was quite alright. He went very quiet in the second half. Dara Sheedy is still playing very well, and he was a real bright spot. And Mark Cronin was going well as well, and he got a very good point to take us to 3-12. He is playing very well, I think, this year. And then after that, I think for the next 11 minutes, just up to the 63rd minute, when Sherlock scores, they outscore us 6 points to 1, and it's brutal stuff. And we're back to all the bad old habits that we're well used to down through the years. And I think that was sticking out like a sore thumb, was that we really don't have a target man inside, and, you know, and it's not so much that we have to be hitting in long balls to them. I just think that we're lacking a target man, but we're also lacking the threat of a target man. And our opponents know it. And Offaly were just pushing out. They didn't have any fear of the early ball over the top. And, you know, out around the arc was very crowded and congested. We look, I could see that we were trying to interchange Colm O'Callaghan into full forward, you know, while play was going on. But that wasn't really working. He got 1 ball, I think, and it was a bad ball along the ground. You know, a ball that no fella wants coming out to. And it's just that we don't have that threat inside to keep, as I always said, just to keep the backs honest. The backs, if they know there's a threat over the top, they will all take that step back, you know. Like Kerry, like when you're playing Kerry, every back knows that a ball can be hit in over their heads at any stage, and it just creates space for everyone outside. So then on 30 minutes, Sean Walsh gets a very good score. Cathal O'Mahony, he wins the ball kind of, I'd say maybe around 30-35 yards out, and he just a simple hand pass to Walsh. I'd say Walsh gets it on the 2-point arc. And this, you know, just here now, I'm just going to stop again. There was kind of a snapshot in time here now that you could see once Walsh got the ball, he could see that he was in loads of space, and he did hesitate, as in he wanted to pass it to someone, but he was in such a good position that he had to shoot. And look, it wasn't an ideal spot for a right-footed kicker. He was a good bit to the right of the goals. And I just said in my own head, no, I said, you're an inter-county footballer, you have to shoot. And he did, in fairness to him, he took it on and he finished beautifully. And it was, just to describe the finish now, I wrote down on the notes, I said it was a Brian Finton type finish, and we all know the way Brian Finton finishes when he gets through like that. Walsh should get great confidence out of that. And, it's when you're in that position and you're at that level, it's the right thing to do. You should do it. And if you can't do it then, or you're consistently not doing it, it becomes a selection issue down at that stage. Now, on the downside for Sean Walsh is that he missed time 4 or 5 kickouts very badly. And the way I was looking, I don't play golf, but I've often heard about fellas getting the yips in golf putting, and that's I think what it's like. His timing is off, and what I would say is he has all the hallmarks of a man. He's kind of looking over his shoulder, and am I going to be replaced? Am I going to be starting? And when we should actually be backing him to the hilt. Look, I would say I think how does he get back on track? He just has to go back to basics, because that's just all in the head. It's nothing got to do with ability. He has the ability, and he's going to be he'll play either start or come on against Meath now the next day, and they have big midfielders, strong and they'll actually lead him into the ball. And I think what he should do is forget about catching and initially and just all about competing and not letting his men win clean ball, and an opportunity will come. His opponent will miss time, and he'll probably catch a handy one, and he's back on track then again. But I think the management need to back him. I think he adds fierce pace to our transition. Just in comparison to Ian Maguire, every time he gets a ball in transition, he slows it down, and I don't think that's what we need. And very similar then with Sean McDonnell. He had a very good first half. He got a point and he had a shot off crossbar, but he spent an awful lot of time in our own half. And for some reason they have stopped. They're not playing him at centre forward. They stopped playing him. And he was wearing the number 12 jersey on Sunday, and he was after wearing the number 11 for the last two games. Excuse me. Now, the number in the jersey shouldn't matter, right? But I actually think it does in certain scenarios. Your goalkeeper, number 3, 6, 8, 9 and 11. And I think especially number 6 and 11, they're pivotal positions. And it's very hard to find a playmaking centre forward. And I think he has the potential to be a top class playmaking centre forward. In the Shawnee Shea mould, that type of a player. But I think we have to back him. I think we just have to give him that 11 jersey and let him develop there. Because I think he's critical to the future, that we have a player there, a pivotal player there that we can build around. We've shifted him out of position there now the last day, and against Louth, just to accommodate, starting other players. And I just think it's a big mistake long term. Look, and you could see with him as well, look, his confidence, I think he sensed it just his confidence wasn't that where it should have been on Sunday. And just before he was replaced, like he had a shot on that he'd normally take, and he didn't, and he was too late making the pass in, and he knew in his own head that he shouldn't even be making the pass, that he should be after kicking the ball at that stage, and his heart wasn't in it, and he got intercepted, and he got caught for overcarrying after that, and just all uncharacteristic stuff, and the hallmarks of a player that's doubting himself, and that's down to player management. I mentioned that there about David Buckley a few weeks ago. When we see players with that extra bit of potential, I think we really have to work with them to develop them. And that's another thing. No, it'll be very interesting against Meath with Dara Sheedy. And what we really have to remember now with Dara Sheedy, he's only a young fella, and we can't be asking anything of him. You know, anything we get off him is going to be a bonus this year. And for that reason, I wouldn't start him against Meath. He was our best player against Offaly, no doubt about that. But I think he'd be at risk. That's going to be a very high stakes game, and it'll be up a level, and he would be at risk of getting gobbled up. And I know a lot of people say, right, leave him in, he should sink or swim. But I think we could just set his confidence back, and we don't need to do that to him. Bring him on. He won't be under any pressure. And I think at this stage it's all about developing him. And we could hamper this if we don't manage him right. So look, that was kind of the game itself. I suppose just the overall, look, coming away, we won the game. It didn't feel like a loss, but it was very, very frustrating. Like outside of our goal, they outscored us 13 points to 6 in the second half. And it was very hard to put your finger on what went wrong. I've tried to kind of put some bit of a handle on it there. But like, we had a big cushion at the start of the second half with the wind. And I thought that we might risk, going early and long and see how that went. But we started queuing up for 2-pointers. And as I said, that area got very crowded. And, we hardly even got two-point shots off throughout the second half. Because Offaly were dealing with us very comfortably. And they knew there was no early long ball threats. So they were happy enough just to block us off around the arc. And another thing we stopped doing was, we had runners, and we stopped using the obvious first option pass onto the runner when we were in transition. It was as if like we thought that it was too easy, that we must that there's some other kind of defense splitting pass on, and we were delaying things, and we stopped doing what had actually got us into such a good position. And we were saying at half time like that we were looking very good, and that we really looked to have turned the corner, and it was that we were ready for the next step, and it was really hard to explain or make sense of it. I don't know how, actually, it'd be like you'd leave toddlers inside in the sitting room there, and you go back after a quarter of an hour and have a look at them. They're happy out watching the television, and you go back after another 15 minutes and they're after finding a tin of paint, and they're painting the sofa. Like, it just feels hard to make sense of it. So, and the reality of it was that our full back line it held up very well in that second half, while out the field wasn't going well. And I tell you, they didn't let any goal chance in for Offaly. They might have had a small bit of a smell, alright, but nothing really very dangerous. And I tell you, if Offaly had got a goal, I'd be very worried about what might have happened. And we were kind of happy enough to hear the hooter at the end. So that's the Offaly game. Just looking back now, or looking ahead now to the Meath game. Look, sure, with Cork, you just don't know what to expect now. Look, you'd be hoping after such a poor second half that we might get a reaction. Because look, if we had ran out and blitzed them in the second half again against Offaly, we might fall on our arses. But look, it's hard to know. We don't know who's fit and who's not fit, especially with Hurley and Brian O'Driscoll. We didn't have any score from defence on Sunday. Luke Fahey was actually very quiet Sunday. So we really need Brian O'Driscoll. Look, it's going to be a big statement. Whatever team wins on Sunday, it's going to be a huge statement. It'll mean they'll have 8 points from 8, and I think there's actually just more than 2 points on the line. Whoever wins this game Sunday, they're going to be in pole position for promotion, and it's going to be a big statement and a huge confidence boost to whoever gets the win on Sunday. Kickouts obviously are going to be crucial. Meath are very strong in this area. They're big men. And I think if we could break even on the kickouts, we'd be doing okay. Another thing, Patrick Doyle is injured. Don't know what the story is there. That could mean that our short ones aren't going to be as good as they have been. Micheál Martin wouldn't be as strong on the short ones as Doyle. And if we're going to be playing long kickouts all day, that's going to be playing into Meath's hands. Look, and for that reason, I'd say we should be inclined to start Rory Dean and Paul Welch at 10 and 12, and Sean McDonald at 11. And go with Crone and Hurley and Chris Ogue inside. But I think they'll start Ian Maguire and Colm O'Callaghan midfield. Look, in my opinion, that's a mistake. But look, that's not out of my hands. But look, it's hard to know then what they're thinking with the half back line. It really is up in the air, and we need to get it sorted. Look, Tommy Welch is going to be back, and the full back line were solid Sunday, so I think, look, maybe we might see Tommy Welch at centre back. I don't know, but I'd be putting Meath down as favourites anyway, definitely. I don't think there's an awful lot between the teams, but I listened to an interview there with the Meath manager Robbie Brennan there the weekend, and what he was stressing in the interview was how much freedom that he allows his players, and that he allows them to make their own decisions on the field. And I don't think we have that culture in the Cork setup. I could be wrong, but I just sense that we have too many players afraid to make the wrong move, and it's holding us back. Look, and we have to realise, look, we're not All-Ireland contenders this year, and it's about maxing out our potential, and I think our ceiling could be much higher if we let the players off the leash a bit more. Look, I know there's risks involved in that, but I think we should be building towards the future and seeing what the maximum we can get out of these players. So I think just give them a bit more autonomy. So that's it. What I'm going to be doing there now in the next, I'll probably be bringing it out Friday night, would be I'm going to do a video, kind of a deep dive into the Cork and Meath battles of the late 80s, and there's going to be a few personal anecdotes and a couple of cultural references as well in there. So I'll leave it there, and actually just I would appeal to anyone that's listening and just to encourage people to come into Parky Ring and support the lads on Sunday. It would be great to have a good crowd inside there and good atmosphere, and just also just like and subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow on the Twitter. And actually, before I leave there now, I just want to give a plug to there's a man there, he's after bringing out a hurling podcast. It's called Cork Hurling Pod, and I highly recommend it. Look, myself now, I have very limited technical hurling knowledge, and I found the information he had on it really helpful. It gave me a great insight into what's happening with the hurlers, and I highly recommend it. So I leave it there, and good luck and God bless.